Most impactful quarterbacks, though.
Oh, see, when you talk about quarterback play, I'm leaving. Nope, don't want to hear about it. I appreciate you, my boy.
Ooh. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Ken.
Hopefully, Derek Carr next year we hit the Super Bowl.
You were saying what?
Most impactful. Let me go to the other side.
Yes, sir.
Most impactful quarterbacks.
Yes, sir.
So looking at through the lens that you look at it, who else is on that level where you were a game changer or an impact player? How many of those quarterbacks?
Ever or now?
You can run down the list. Well, how many now? You got Mahomes?
Mahomes.
That's it. Is Lamar a game changer?
For sure.
Okay.
I think Lamar, just like Patrick, need guys around him to also not have the moment be too big.
See, I think sometimes impact quarterbacks either don't rely or they try to do too much. Mm-hmm. Like Josh Allen tries to do too much.
At times.
Yes. But that's where he gets in trouble sometimes.
That was me.
Yes. Yes.
That was me. And I have always been open to that merit. Like, yo, the great ones know when to cut it on and when to cut it off. I had a perfect example this morning when I was on First Take, and they talked about Brady being a game manager. And I said elite. I had an opportunity to have access to a vault of film that normal people wouldn't have, being in New England. And the hardest thing for me was trying to learn a 20-year algorithm in a playbook in 2 months. Yeah. So I taught myself how to watch their film and see who's did. I would have a photogenic person mental, so if I see it, I can see how he has to. What I saw Brady do was better than anything I've ever seen because he was going through his reads faster than people were actually moving. So even though you can already know I'm just looking here just to buy time, but I'm throwing this check down the whole time. When you go back and you look at the Carolina Panthers and the New England Patriots Super Bowl run, Brady did not throw a ball over 10 yards probably once or twice in that final drive. It was a check down, it was another check down, it was another check down. These are things that you don't think, you just think about the heroics of Tom Brady being Tom Brady.
But even with the check down,
right,
the defense knows you're going to check down,
yeah,
right? They're assuming.
It's called a check to rally, right? The defense don't want, they always say this word of don't bite the cheese, meaning Dan's right there in front, there's a defender in between, but I'm looping behind him. I will give Dan that completion rather than Cam coming 15 yards behind me. So we'll rally to Dan to tackle him, check down. But what you're not understanding is that check down would have missed tackle, a 4-yard, 8-yard gain, broke tackle. Now it's a chunk play. So with that whole understanding of football, to take what the defense gives you, a lot of check down Charlies or game managers, they know when to say, okay, I'm a shoulder roll. I know you see Dan. The great ones are able to say, I know when to take my chances.
Because Mahomes, it felt like, certainly this year, the defense is just said, you're not getting behind us.
You're not.
And if you don't have Tyreek Hill, so now that's where everything's in front, but Patrick is still able to be Patrick.
Going back to that point with the determining factors, had his receivers upheld their end of the bargain, they cost him an MVP. Because when you think about the numbers, right? The MVP is a popularity contest with numbers.
Yeah.
His numbers didn't match previous years.
Yeah.
But the drop passes were higher than recent years. There was opportunities for him to be great or opportunities for his team to have success, right? But you still need people to catch it. You still need time to throw it. You still need, other guys to uphold their end, the defense to do their job as well. And that's where the sustainability for Patrick to be able to say, without, it's me, that I can bring this best version of my teammate out. There's times where they got it, and there's times that they didn't.
Well, he's competing against himself. Tom was competing against himself. LeBron's competing against himself. Jordan was, I mean, the great ones get to a point, and then who's your competition? Me. Because now we look at you and go, wait a minute, you only threw 28 touchdown passes.
Correct.
You throw 40.
40.
Therefore, you had a bad year.
Correct.
Brady throws for, 55? Now what do you do the next time? Or Peyton throws for. So it felt like, or feels like, certain players, you get to a point where your legacy is what you bring out on the field every day. Every game.
That was the thing. I think it was Dave Gettleman, my GM at the time, and he gave me this article in our year in review. It was Brady, and it was a 360. Football is a 365-day sport. That was the article. And Dave Gettleman told me there's a difference between a football player and a professional football player. And Cam, in order for your career to go to that next level, you have to be a professional football player. I said, okay, what else? You have to find a way to have sustained success. The great ones, it's a you versus you thing. 2015, that was a me versus me thing, and I felt as if there was a lot of other things, but the legacy was hit because that sustained success wasn't matched the following year.
Yeah.
And I've always battled this narrative. As a franchise quarterback, we can't put you in harm's way like that. But I would say I feel comfortable running the football. I never hurt my shoulder or hurt any injuries outside the pocket. It was inside the pocket. Lance Frank, I was scrambling inside, moving around inside the pocket. My shoulder was impacted after an interception that got called back, and I landed wrong. And then obviously you've seen the T.J. Watt hit to re-injure it again. Like, that was inside the pocket. That wasn't outside the pocket. So when people always critique my game, it's like, oh, he's a running back, or you can't run your quarterback on 4th and 1, 3rd and inches. That's where I felt comfortable at. And the thing about Lamar Jackson is I would hate for him to start feeling the need to play like somebody. It's you versus you. You're changing the merit and the narrative how we judge quarterbacks. So Patrick Mahomes, for him, I would hate for Patrick Mahomes to feel like, oh, I need to add this to my repertoire. No. Being great in anything can be boring.
But did it come too easy for you at times? College?
No.
Because I always thought with Kyler Murray, he was unbelievable in high school.
Yes.
Win a Heisman in college. Took him a little while to get, move past Baker and show he could play. Then he's now asked to be like, now you got to be 365.
Right.
And that's where I wondered if he would make that commitment to be 365. And I think his future, his success, will be
365 meaning?
All year round. Every day.
Oh, yes, sir.
Tom Brady, 365.
Yes,
like, you got to, how dedicated are you? Because you can only get by for so long with so much talent.
With natural talent.
Yes.
Right. So 365 for me was always, I didn't have to deal with it in college because I think in college there's still we got to get our best guys the ball. We're going to feed you. There was multiple times in games in college where Coach Malzahn would tell me, we're going through you. There's no, you're the only option here. We're going through you. And even when I got to the league, I would have conversations with Rob Trzynski, Mike Shula, Norv Turner. Like, I feel comfortable with running the ball.
Yeah.
I'm okay. There were times where they heard more pressure about me running than I felt that I should run.
Yeah.
And that's where I knew I wasn't going to have a 15-year career. I knew I wasn't going to have a 20-year career.
When did you know this?
This was year 2, year 3. I knew this because the way my style of playing. But I thought it would be me running rather than me in the pocket. You see what I'm saying? I thought it was going to be me running, listening to the pundits. Oh, you can't run the ball more than your running back. But had I just stuck to my guns and said, Coach Rivera, no, run me more, because it's efficient, it keeps me tied into the game. I feel more focused, tired when I'm fresh. And it's a weird obsession, right? It's like when I'm fresh, the first play of the game to throw the ball, I'll be erratic. When I'm tired, it forces me to focus more on my mechanics, right?
I remember being at the Denver game, and they roughed you up.
Yeah.
When you ran, it felt like they were coming after you, and they were willing to take a 15-yard penalty.
Right.
I think
that was the kickoff game 2016.
Yes, it was. And you took a beating.
Right.
I think you also, in a game against Washington, I just remember it felt like any opportunity to get you, whatever it took. Right. And those linebackers were coming after you. And they got flagged, I think. They might have gotten fined for it. But they were coming after you, and I was like, does that hurt? How much does that hurt when you get hit by these guys?
So, it's many ways to skin a cat. And what I would do in the off season, I would do self-scouts of me. I would run into people at, Radio Rows or in the off season, would see them, and I would ask them this: how did y'all prepare for me? How did y'all get prepared for the Carolina Panthers? And surprisingly, this answer was more prominent than people gave it.
But they were telling you what they did?
They would say, you stop Cam Newton.
Yeah.
Do not let Cam get excited. You have a more chance, especially at home. I knew what my gift was. I had this addictive personality to say like, yo, I just got a 2-yard rush for a touchdown. It was my job to ignite the crowd. Everybody didn't think that was a asset. I seen Steve Smith do it. That's where I learned to get everybody involved, because now your teammates see it. Everybody feels that energy where it's like, okay, I like that. So for me, that self-scout came by way of people saying, we can't let Cam get involved. We got to take Cam out. Hell or high water. And even with Cam Jordan, he would say, playing the Carolina Panthers during Cam Newton's stint, take Cam Newton out of it, then force other players to emotionally charge the team and the stadium. It's a different team.
By the way, guys under 5'10" that you wouldn't want to fight, Steve Smith is on that list.
Yes.
Yeah. I saw him coming out of the hotel lobby, and I'm like, wouldn't want to mess with you.
He had this pit bull-like mentality that there was guys in my career, Dan, I'm not going to lie. I studied them more than I gave them credit for, or they knew. I seen how he came in every single day. I seen how he practiced. Luke, I seen how he prepared. I took those things. I see you, right? I see you from afar, and I see your content, and I study it. And it's like one of those things where I have this obsession with like, okay, but why? How does he eliminate pause, right? And even for you, not a lot of people in sports or in media, it's like everybody can close their eyes and everybody says a word. Your voice inflection is iconic and it's right. Oh, that's Dan Patrick.
Yeah.
But
I don't think about it.
Right.
I never worked on my voice, but I also, I knew that I had to know more. And so when you're giving me an answer, I'm listening to your answer.
I see it.
But I'm also, like the first thing I thought of when you were talking about, did it come easy to you? At what point did you say, I'm better than Tim Tebow, but I'm not going to start? When was that? When you were in college, did you think you were better than Tim?
I knew I was.
Okay.
There was an incident that happened where Tim was quicker than me, he wasn't faster than me. Tim was stronger than me, but he wasn't more elusive than me. And there was a time where it was not a scuffle, but it was just a challenge where he's testing me. Tim. And after that, I had to prove to myself that he must know, he must feel me. He must know that If circumstances was different, I know you know that I'm capable. I had a conversation with my father, and I told him, I said, Pop, the way you raised me was never to hate or to never want somebody to get hurt. I was in a situation where I had to have Tim Tebow get hurt in order for me to play. And I didn't like that spirit that I was in. And that's what was the first phases of me. I was seeing him in practice. And I'm saying to myself, as a 17, 18-year-old kid, and I was so confused. And I'm like, he throws a slant, I throw a slant. He run down, I run down. He does this, I do that. And I'm questioning, am I tripping?
Like, are they not seeing this?
Are they not seeing this?
Yeah.
And this was not just a practice. This was a body of work. This was an off season. This was training camp. This is okay. In preparation for the season, the second team group was also flawless like the first team group, but then I'm also getting the scout team reps, and then that's being ran flawless too. And I'm saying to myself, I'm like, yo, when will I ever have an opportunity to show the world this? I wouldn't. Tim Tebow was the youngest Heisman Trophy winner at that particular point in time. So Dan Mullen or Urban Meyer at that time to replace him for me? No, that's not happening. I must then leave because I knew in order for me to sprout, I needed a new location in the garden. So that's what it really came down to. But going back to the indirect obsession, I was obsessed of how Tebow prepared. Tebow knew he wasn't the most athletic, but he worked harder than everybody.
And in this business, and I know that you look for advice or you're trying to understand what takes me to the next level.
Yes, sir.
The only way you'll be great is that you ask those questions. You look at somebody, you see how they do it, why do they do it, the direction of your questions. Your questions are close-ended. Your questions should be more of why and how and where and who, because now I get you talking. And the more you talk, the more you're playing into my hands. Because if I give you a question, I say, were you better than Tebow? And you go, yes. I would ask you, why were you better than Tim Tebow? Now I get you talking. Now you might give me something. Now I get to reload, and I'm coming right back at you.
Right.
But you might know all the answers. But the trick is you have to play as if you don't have all the answers. And that's hard to do because your ego, if somebody says, wait, you don't understand that kind of defense? Well, you want somebody who plays that defense to tell you why that defense is successful. But if you go, hey, I'm going to tell you about your defense, isn't that right? And the person goes, yeah. That's not good TV. That's not good radio. Get people talking, because I'm going to listen to one word or two words you say, and now I'm coming after you. But not in a mean way.
No.
It's
It's craftsmanship.
It's there.
And that right there, for me, when I first came on your platform, I felt that. I sensed it, And I'm saying to myself, even having this conversation, there are certain times where, you've been in situations where you go on people, and as you're talking, they're looking down, or they're talking and they're rambling, and they're saying, okay, I'm going to get to this one. When I'm talking to you, Mr. Dan, you're looking okay, it's almost like playing Frogger. Right? In that traffic game where traffic is on, traffic goes okay, now when can I jump right here, but to jump right back there, and that's the thing, and it's
But you should be doing this before the guest gets on. And then all that is now it's not like having a wristband that helps you with the plays.
Right.
But if you need it, it's there. I always felt like it's disingenuous to you that I need that to talk to you. And if I've done my homework, I have a basic knowledge of what I want to get, where I want to start, what's my middle, and what's my end. Now, it doesn't always go that way.
And it may go the end first, and then the middle.
It could be. Yeah. If you sat down, the first question I would ask you is, what kind of watch is that? Because you're not expecting that. So now I have you thinking about something else. I'll get back to all the other stuff. You're a Hall of Famer, all that stuff. Is that a Hublot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, tell me what
inspired? Right, correct.
Like now, I get you talking about something that you really love.
Right.
What kind of mood does a cigar put you in?
Right.
Why do you like wine? Like, be curious about the person. Not, I've got these questions I got to ask you. You know, we'll get around to Brock Purdy, but these other ones help people understand who you are.
And they get comfortable.
Yes, that's what I want.
Or uncomfortable.
Well, I'm going to make you squirm a little bit, but then I can always, it's like a hot air balloon. Sometimes it gets pretty high, and you look down and you go, I'll be down. Now I'll bring you back down.
Right.
You're okay? You all right? Comfortable? Comfortable. Right. Balloon starts to go up a little bit, maybe a little uncomfortable. Bring it back down a little bit. I never want you, it's like pitching. I never want you to go, I know what's coming. Might be a curveball, might be a fastball, might be a changeup.
Right.
You're still at the plate. I respect you at the plate. Now I got to decide how I want to get something out of you.
But how is it when, have you ever felt like you were doing somebody a disservice?
There are times when I have to ask a question. I feel like I have to ask a question, and I don't want to ask that question. Like Barry Bonds. You know, he didn't want to talk about steroids, but you can't have Barry Bonds on without, he doesn't have to answer it. But I can even say, why don't you want to talk about that? So whatever he says, he might tell me something there that allows me to go sort of side door, back door, and then get something out of him. You know, your trainer went to prison. How did you feel when he went to prison on your behalf? So now I've got to shift it a little bit to ask you a question that you know is coming, but I can't let you know how I'm going to ask that question.
Correct.
So that's really the key. I may know you got the ball and you're coming at me.
Correct.
But I don't know if you're going up the middle, out, you know, outside, whatever those things are.
Right.
Or you might decide to pass. But you have to study your subject. You have to understand. I can see your body language. I can tell when, even when at the very end of the interview we had, and you were like, tell me what you think of me.
Right.
But I didn't have the time to tell you what I thought of you. Therefore, you said, oh, I'm doing the Euro. And it was a great comment. And that's why I said, I'm going to Wembayama you.
Correct.
Like, I'm going to get it out of here. But it wasn't a disrespect as much as I appreciated you asking the question. Right. I just didn't have the time. And I said, I don't have the time.
To properly explain.
Yes.
And I've gotten myself in, not necessarily in shit, but it was, I've realized over this weekend, and I had this epiphany when I was talking to Kimberly Martin. It wasn't nothing against her or her statement where she said, never mind the outfit real quick. I realized that being on a major network, you have more airtime. I'm delivering a message with an hour and 30 minutes of airtime. If Stephen A. Smith says, I don't like Dan Patrick, on one show, he can then go to the next show and say, hey, I just recently said, I don't like Dan Patrick, and I'm going to tell you why.
Yeah. Well, he's got his podcast that he can go on.
He has so much airtime to be able to say why and bring it to perspective. When I said what I said about the game changer versus game manager, it wasn't that it offended people. People didn't know where I was coming from. And once I explained that, it happened yesterday, it's clear as day. Warren Sapp sat right there and he said, yo, I see what you're saying now. Because he defended his quarterback. He said, let me tell you what you're not going to do. You're not going to talk about my coach. You're not going to talk about my owner. You're not going to talk about my quarterback. And I said, that's fine. I said, but your quarterback was a game manager. Brad Johnson? No, he wasn't. I said, well, I'll tell you why. When I think about the 2000 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the first person that comes to mind is not Brad Johnson. And that's not to say he's not a great player or a good player, right?
That's where we look at, we talk about quarterbacks winning, but then when somebody wins and they're not a great quarterback, then we don't give him any, like Trent Dilfer doesn't get any question.
Correct.
He doesn't get any credit, right? Brad Johnson gets no credit. Certain guys that you go, yeah, but.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the case with Brock Purdy. If they win, I maintain he's got to win 2 Super Bowls before people give him credit for 1 Super Bowl. Just to prove that, hey, great numbers regular season. We see this with the NBA. Giannis put up all these great numbers. Well, you got to win a title. Joker put up all these great numbers. Got to win a title. Now it's Joel Embiid putting up great numbers. Got to win a title. Lamar Jackson, 2-time MVP. You got to win a Super Bowl. That's sort of the progression we have with great players. But when you're not a great player, but you do win something that other great players won, well, you're not in that. You're not allowed in the fraternity.
But when you think about Dan Marino, though,
I think Dan Marino was so far ahead of his time. He was decades ahead of his time. 3 wide, shotgun, quick release. You could beat up the receivers. He threw deep. Dude was a baller, man. He was a badass. Like, if you said I could be a quarterback, the way he played the game, I mean, he couldn't run. I know all that.
Right.
But even more amazing.
Correct.
He just like Duper and Clayton and Nat Moore, and he was a baller, and I appreciated that. So he doesn't win. John Elway, when he lost the first 3 Super Bowls, I said, I still think he's the best quarterback in football. Because that dude could beat you with his arm. He could run. He was clutch.
Had a rocket.
Yes.
Bill Belichick showed us John Elway footage. And I never really had the opportunity to appreciate the past. Belichick was and we got Matt Judon here, but Belichick was a person who he was a teacher of the game, and I respected him the more when there was a instance in football, not just NFL, in football, that he wanted to share with the team, and he educated everybody. He said, no, in this team meeting, we're not going to talk. We're going to go over the schedule. Okay, cool. There's a point where we all need to understand the importance of protecting the ball, or the importance of getting off the field, or the importance of being on like these things in all of football sports. He would come into our quarterback room, and he had a clip already of about 15 to 20 plays of John Elway throwing a dagger combination, which is a 2-man, like, one runs the clear out, and it got a dig coming behind him. And that dagger is around about 15 to 20 yards on an absolute a frozen rope. And it wasn't low. It was hit. It was like right above the hairline every single time. And he had the long wind up, and it was just, you can hear the sizzle in the, I mean, oh my goodness. It was just something where it's like, yo, like, I see why he was great. I see why he was mentioned for that.
But they would talk about the Elway cross. The football, at the end of the football, to cross. And guys would get hit, and it would leave a mark. The receivers would talk about the Elway cross because he didn't have touch. He was coming. It was like, exactly.
He was steaming.
Exactly. I know you got other things to do, other people to bring in here. So it's great to talk to you.
Man, I have your information, man, and I'm definitely.
But once again, you got my number. If I can help you, you got questions,
yes, sir,
then I can certainly. But stay curious. Stay curious. And don't be afraid to let your guests tell you something.
Study your subject.
Even if you know the answer.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid. It's like when you talk to your wife or girlfriend. You don't say, how was your, did you have a good day? Yeah. Tell me what was great about your day, hon. Then you get talking. Your kids, same thing. Hey, how was school? Good. What was the best part of school? Get them talking. It's amazing what people tell you when you let them talk. Okay?
Oh, my goodness.
All right.
Thank you. Darren Patrick,
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Hold on.
Go. Oh.